Good morning, it's Brian here at Expert Dojo. You are back for yet another phenomenal podcast, which is with one of the entrepreneurs that we've invested in. Not just one of the entrepreneurs we've invested in, but a phenomenal company that are breaking through in a massive way. And it's so really interesting in this world because I get to see products where I think to myself, where the heck was this when I was doing X? And in this case, it's like, where the heck was this when we were having a baby? Because that was all kinds of messed up. Because we had a baby and the baby was like in this incubator for days and days and days and days. And I didn't really understand why. And nobody really understands why. We just do it because we're told to do it and we put it in there. And then afterwards it gets given back to us. And after like about 2 or 3 days, and you kind of wonder, well, why was it 2 or 3 days? And did we have to be separated from our baby at like the most important time or not? And that was really, close to my mind when Alexa first came and said, hey, I have this company and this is what we're building and this is how it's going to work out. And this is the huge problem in the healthcare system, is that it's a healthcare system. Actually, it's a health system. It's not a care system. And that's the big problem. So I love, love, love this innovation. I believe, and Expert Dojo believes, this is going to be massive, which is why we invested into it. And today we're going to talk about it a little bit. And we're going to talk about a couple of things around this. We're going to talk about the product itself. We're going to talk about Alexa and her execution skills. We're going to talk about the team around here who were able to bring this out to market. We're going to talk about how we build it up to $100,000 a month, and then how we turn this into a product or a suite of products which can make a ton of money, and then how do we raise the money to get there, right? That kind of wraps a very nice bow on top of a beautiful birthday gift box, which is a nice little unicorn, which I'm hoping to get on this deal because I like it so much. Alexa, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
So tell us all about it. And I've given some clues as to what it's about, but I haven't gone so deep that people will know what it is. So maybe if you could talk from your personal experience, like what was it? Because this is such a specific thing. It's not something you randomly wake up in the morning and think, I've been thinking.
Definitely not.
No. So where did it come from? How did it come? And then we're gonna dig into what the product looks like.
Sure. So the product is called Snuglet, and the company is called TheraB Medical. And I actually invented Snuglet as an engineering student when I was at Michigan State University in bioengineering. And originally, the initial, how I even knew that jaundice was even, a thing and a problem started from a class project in a design course. And so, like you said, it wasn't like I just got up one day and thought, I think I'm going to solve this problem. I was given the assignment to come up with a treatment for jaundice for developing nations, really focused on, low cost, easy to ship type of treatment. And I was like, I don't even know what that is. Like, what is jaundice? And so the information that we're going off now really stemmed from talking to nurses.
And just before we go past, John, like, how big of a problem is this?
Yeah.
Not just in the US. Like, does it vary if I'm in Africa or in India? Does it vary just by wealth of nation? Like, what is it that dictates kind of how massive a problem this is?
So infant jaundice is a condition that babies are born with over 60% of the time in most places. And it can vary in severity to, just a little bit to a really major case. So in the US, it's about 60%. But in some places like Southeast Asia and India, it's upwards of 90%. And
wow.
There's not one specific reason why that is. Some of it is just down to genetics, but it's still, huge numbers, 60 to 90% experiencing this condition in some way is still, that's a lot of babies across the world.
And that to me, when you start getting to majorities, it's a natural occurrence. That if it doesn't happen to you, you got lucky. It doesn't move into the bad luck. It's only in the bad luck section when you're on low levels of incidence, but the incidence levels are very high. So really it affects pretty much the vast majority of parents, probably 80% of parents. If we say that the average amount of kids, like 2 kids, then it pretty much affects everybody, right?
Well, I mean, I don't know. Not every single person you meet will have gone through this, but the majority of people at least know someone that have had a jaundice baby.
Yeah, and also I think kind of where I've gone to with this journey of being around you
Mm-hmm.
is a lot of parents don't realize they had it because it's not really discussed if it's on a low level because they don't want to
Mm-hmm.
use it, take out the incubators just by having it to a baby. But as a parent, if I knew that my child even had a tiny amount of jaundice, that it wasn't even a mild case, then I would still want it to be treated.
Yeah.
I just wouldn't want to be separated from my baby while it was happening.
Yes. And I think that's something that is kind of overlooked. Like if you are looking up blogs or articles, some people kind of have the perspective of, oh, well, it's so common, it can't be that bad. But I mean, the serious part about this condition is that if you don't treat it, it can cause irreversible brain damage called kernicterus,
Wow.
but also forms of cerebral palsy. And so, of course, no one wants their baby to be born healthy and then
No.
end up with one of these conditions. So
God, no.
I think sometimes as humans, we just kind of think, oh, if something's common, like it can't really be that bad. And we're really trying to break free from that with this product and say that every baby that has jaundice globally, if it's at a certain point, we should be treating it and not have any of these other aspects be the reason why they're not treated.
Yeah, absolutely phenomenal. And then, so please continue. I rudely interrupted just so I could actually showcase
Mm-hmm.
this is a really big thing and it's
Yeah.
very real and it's very now.
Yep.
So please continue with the story.
Oh, well, long story short, it was originally a design project with a completely, only global focus, or I should say international focus, not a U.S. product. But it started going to hospitals in Michigan, and the nurses were like, "Oh my God, like this is great! You're doing this design project, but can you make us a new product? Like it needs to be wearable. We don't want to have two products." Just listing off all of the things they wanted their ideal product to be. And at that point in my life, I was kind of at the intersection of engineering background by trade, but I had worked in finance and kind of on the business side. And the student startup scene back at that time was just kind of starting to, come to light. And there was more student startup action happening at Michigan State. So I was like, I think I'll just see what I can do with this. There's obviously people asking for a new product and, we're able to at least work on it a little bit and let's just see what happens. So that was the genesis of how this company and the product came to be.
And I'm guessing the more you looked into this, the more encouraged you became with how real and big an issue that this is for people. And what I really like is you kind of went through that whole process. Well, if I can't bring Muhammad to the mountain, I'm going to bring the mountain to Muhammad, right? Because if we were looking, we went through like the John McDonald example of the iron lungs. Like if we went through that whole process, we would have said, you know what we need? We need more incubators. We need more places to put the baby. Let's stack them higher so we can put more babies in there. But you didn't think like that. Was that something that just evolved? Or how did your mindset go to, okay, there is a solution for this right now? The solution right now is ungodly expensive because they have to be put into a separate ward. They have to be separated from their parents. They have to be put into an incubator. They have to go through a proper an ovening exercise while they sit in there for a period of time. And then they come out. But it's really expensive because you're now you're not just paying for the baby to be in there. You're paying for the parents to be continually around because nobody's comfortable with this, right? They're either going to stay where they are in the room or they're going to keep coming back in and visiting depending on how severe the case is. But did you look at that as the first solution and just to do a better microwave? Or did you look at, I need to re-engineer entirely how this thing is being built?
It actually, it really came from nurses, like nurses saying things like, oh, we hate that, babies like to be swaddled. And when you put them in this incubator, they're naked and they're flailing around and they're screaming and crying. Like, I just wish we had a cute little swaddle that could do this. So, really, if you talk to the people that are going to be using your product, they can tell you what their ideal solution is. And that really is how it played out for us.
Shock horror.
Yeah.
I know. Ask the customers, but nobody does it, but you did. And then where did you come to the conclusion that actually you would be able to replicate the effects of what's happening within the systems that they have within the swaddle that you're creating?
So light therapy is interesting because, I mean, as you know, with any kind of light, there's a wavelength and there's an intensity, and you can arrive at those two things through a variety of different ways. I mean, you can have a halogen bulb, kind of old school LED, and then these like new LEDs at the right spec, and they can all have the same wavelength and the same intensity. So really the why now for this product is really where we're at as a society with LED technology. Like the fact that we have flexible versions of lighting, I mean, that didn't exist at any point before now. So, I mean, there's articles and research and testing protocols that prove, you can treat jaundice through XYZ technical spec. And then we were able to take that with modern electronics, essentially, and say, these are our requirements. And let's design a solution that meets these technical requirements, from a lighting perspective or output perspective, using what we have now in 2022 from an LED perspective.
Yeah, wonderful. And then how difficult was that process in building it? Your first prototype?
The first prototype was literally terrible. Like, I don't even like to look at pictures of it anymore, which I'm sure a lot of people have that same experience. I mean, we've made probably 20 prototypes over the years, ranging from just ones we kind of, put together to ones from things we bought at the store, strip lights that you could put under your kitchen cabinets, just to prove that this is the concept is sure. What people would want. And to where we're at now is we're actually in the kind of manufacturing planning process. So actually planning for the tooling and getting more representative parts that, it's a big far cry from what we started with. And I think that one misconception is that people think, oh, it's just lights in a blanket. Like, how hard could it be? It's not like I could do that. I think that people misconstrue how much goes into, being able to put that many lights next to a human, let alone a newborn. I mean, there's a lot that goes into it from a design perspective and an engineering perspective. And so we've been really grateful to work with engineers and quality people and risk people to help us through all of that.
Wonderful. And was it challenging from a regulation perspective?
So we're still going through that now. And so, yes, it has been, but I think that we're, blessed to be in the position we are, which is that we're not a de novo or, the worst possible situation or longest and most expensive bucket when it comes to regulatory. We're kind of in the middle. I mean, we don't have to do a clinical study. It's a pretty straightforward process. So it hasn't been too bad so far, and we will be submitting later this year. So let's hope that things continue that way, we have lots of regulatory advice on our side. So I'm confident in that.
And whenever I'm going through these podcasts, I always like to take it on the hero's journey, which is to start off at the beginning when things are tough and everything really is being pushed at you. And there are 100 reasons for you not to do it and only really one reason for you to do it. And then build your way to where you're coming to today, where you're starting to feel super confident about where you are and the adoption in the market. And talk to me about just in those early days, some of the more challenging moments that you had where maybe it would have been easier to stop and walk away than even keep on doing it.
I mean, when I started working on my company full time, I mean, I came from working full time at an investment bank, where your days there are very structured and someone's pretty much always telling you what to do. So on a personal note, it was really different for me to work for, a company that I had started where like there's no one telling you from 8 to 9 you do this and 9 to 10 you do this. So I mean, figuring out how do you even raise venture money and, juggling products, marketing, fundraising, all of those things. That was definitely, a hard part for me personally. And I think other than that, we've been doing pretty good. I think, of course, fundraising is always a hard part of any entrepreneur's journey. I think pediatrics and maternal infant health specifically, I think is getting more attention now, but previously it wasn't as much. I mean, they are more, people like to say, niche markets than some of the other tech companies that we've heard of. So we've had to get kind of creative with the investors that we look for, just, knowing that we're specifically in that pediatric, femtech type space.
And I'm guessing as well the fact that a huge majority of the investors are male, and that you're dealing in something which they have got no idea about unless they're highly med tech, then they just don't know. It probably adds to that challenge as well, and almost to the stage it might get a little bit frustrating.
I mean, I would say it's split. I mean, sometimes I feel like I have to explain, like on the one extreme, like I have to explain why we would care about bonding and breastfeeding when you could just treat the condition. But on the other flip side, a lot of people that I pitch to, I mean, even people that you wouldn't think would be aware of this, say, oh, like my daughter just went through that with her baby. So it's not necessarily always that way, which has been really great.
The other thing as well is, look, everybody knows the healthcare system is crumbling around us, and it's nobody's fault. It's just not a formula that's able to work. So we need to be able to find solutions to be able to take the healthcare system home, and to have the healthcare system in a way where it's convenient to the actual people that are being treated. And that's just it. And there's literally no friction in the hospitals against that. If you can say in the hospitals, hey, we're going to reduce. And actually, this would be an interesting thing. What do you believe the impact would be on the hospitals as far as increasing the amount of space availability for important stuff, reducing the amount of costs for people they have had in there previously, but they don't need to think so? I would imagine it's pretty serious.
Yeah, so I don't even think I described what the product even looks like, so I'll do that real fast. So essentially, Snuglet is a wearable swaddle that has phototherapy on the inside of it. And so we're looking at fostering the important things like continuing feeding during therapy and fostering maternal and paternal infant bonding during therapy. But we're also really interested in increasing surface area and distance from the skin, because from a treatment perspective, that those two things are really important when it comes to effectiveness. So on that note, with the question you just asked, one of the first pilot studies that we're doing will be focused on, comparing treatment times, essentially, of standard of care compared to our product, both for hospital and home care in the long run. Because, I mean, even if you can decrease a baby's stay by half a day, that's meaningful, or even a few hours, that's meaningful. A lot of times, it's billed by the day, it's billed by you get paid for jaundice treatment if it's 1 hour or 5 days. So for the hospital, obviously they want it to be less time, and jaundice is a lot of times the reason why the baby is not able to go home, especially a healthy baby. So that's really the financial part of it, or part of the financial part of it would be really, kind of coming back to, can I treat this baby faster in the hospital, or can I move their treatment to home because I now have a better hospital grade home product?
And then on the other part of the financial is the go-to-market, right? So we'll just fast forward a little bit. We get the regs through. Product is already ready. It already looks beautiful. And you'll continue to improve it and make it better and better and better, but it's there. So what does that go-to-market look like? Obviously, the nurses, I'm sure, are a huge part of the sales process, as are the hospital systems are a huge part of the sales process. However, the moms and the dads are a huge part of the like, I'm pretty dumb with this stuff. I think I'm a pretty good dad, but I'm pretty dumb with this stuff. But even I know that if you say to me, look, you can either leave him in this box and pick him up in a couple of days like a FedEx courier, or you can actually have your little boy with you and close to you for the first few days, where like there's all that. I mean, I don't know if it's more stressful for the parent or whether it's more stressful for the child, but it's a good thing if they're together, right? So we'd all agree on that.
Definitely.
So I believe it's a bit of a no-brainer, but I do think that education, because I didn't know, like I had no clue, and I'm pretty well versed in this thing. Like my wife is a huge medical researcher, and we didn't know. We're just like, okay, doc, like that's no problem. We'll do what we have to do. So what does that sales process look like, and how much of it is direct outreach sales, and where do you believe the largest challenges are going to be to getting this to become the market?
So we've talked to over 300 nurses over what we call our voice of customer, interviews or studies or whatever you want to call it. And part of that is product focus, and part of that is what you're talking about, like, getting the product into the hospital focused and understanding what that process looks like. And for the most part, the nurse manager of the unit is responsible for the budget. So that could either be the NICU or the well baby, postpartum, whatever. There's several different units that this could be used in. And since this is a product that would be less than $5,000, it's not like a huge capital expenditure. So it was actually interesting to find that the nurse manager does have control over that, which is good for us because, having that person be our target for, who we're selling to is a lot better than someone who doesn't use this product and sees thousands of products a year. And so, we've been working with nurses through development, of course, and then once we get our regulatory, and even before that, planning for launch, capturing the nurse audience, and of course the pediatrician and neonatologist on the physician side, that will be our strategy. And also, almost just as important, finding a really great distribution partner will also be really crucial for us to gain access to, there's over 5,000 hospitals in the US with birthing units. That's a lot of hospitals, and we're a small startup company. So, both of those things simultaneously is really what our strategy is for getting this product out to as many hospitals and as many families as we can.
Very powerful. And then how do you see that growth over the next couple of years? So this year is all going to be about making everything nice, making the regs nice, making the product nice, spreading a little bit of PR love so that the world start to hear about you, but in a way that doesn't affect the regulations. But then what does 2023, 24 look like? I mean, how many can we sell? And I say can rather than will, because these are always projections, right? But how many can we sell in 2023 and in 2024? And how do you see that revenue ramping up along with the raises that you're going to be doing while that happens?
So our first year of launch will be focused, at least at first, on what we're calling a limited launch. And so we have hospitals that we're working with now to prepare for them to be the hospitals that receive products like on day one, when we're able to start selling. And so we'll start gathering data from those hospitals while simultaneously launching in hospitals we already have a footprint in. So that's people that we've worked with before and have seen prototypes and so on. And then, of course, our second year will be what we call our full scale launch. So by then we'll have a distribution partner in place, and we'll really be looking at full scalability in the U.S. market. And I don't even think I've mentioned it in this podcast, but we also do have a strategic partner in India. And so that's kind of a separate track, simultaneously working alongside our U.S. go-to-market plan. So we'll be launching with them. The company is called MedLeap. It's part of Dr. Reddy's Labs, which is a large pharma company in Hyderabad. So we'll be launching in India on a similar track, starting with a pilot there in Hyderabad, and then moving into a phased rollout approach with that distribution partner. So, really a lot of potential. And those are just two markets. There's other markets that are interesting to us as well.
And that's where I was going to go. So which other markets are interesting?
I think Europe, definitely. I know they've had some regulatory changes over the past few years, but we've been keeping those changes in our back pocket as we've been going through the electrical design. And I think especially if we, some of the strategic partners that we've been in conversations with, if there's a European part of those companies, that would especially help us be able to target those markets.
It has to be. Look, I spent such a long time in England, and as they like to proudly say, they are not a part of Europe, but they are a part of a crummy healthcare system that desperately is trying to free up beds and desperately trying to reduce costs under the weight of a huge population who have got massive needs for healthcare. So that's really what you're speaking to. You're saying to an entire healthcare market, I want to make it easier for you. I want to bring you a product that allows you to take healthy people out of the hospital and have them in the very best place that they could be, which is their homes, which is stopping people from catching diseases. It's stopping stuff from being spread around. It's stopping additional costs being spent on it. By the way, it's saving your nurses from a ton of stress, because who do you think? It's not you, Mr. or Mrs. Hospital boss, who's actually in there checking on the babies when you got 30 or 40 babies sitting in the incubation ward. It's these poor nurses that are sitting there with all of the challenges that are faced with that. So there's just like a lot of folks who want this to happen. We need to get it to market sooner rather than later. Now, here comes the final piece, right? We have great founder, phenomenal team and advising team that has been built around it. We have a phenomenal product, which everybody can tell is a great product for market. You haven't seen it, but it's very easy to be able to look at this. If you look on our portfolio page on the website, you'll be able to see the website, and also we can give you access to anything else that you need. But it looks really nice. If you're a young parent or not so young parent and you want to bring your baby home, then this would be something that you would want in a heartbeat. But talk to me about the money that you're going to need to raise. And talk to me about the big vision that you have at the end of this. Like, where do we take this? Where do we go with it when all is said and done? What does it look like? Does it look like this product, or does it evolve into something very different? Both are good, because this is a huge product. But take us home, and then also share, please, your email address so people can contact you for investors or partners or anybody else.
Yeah. So we see Snuglet as being the new standard of care for jaundice treatment, of course, in hospitals, but also we see Snuglet as kind of a revolution of home care treatment. Especially since 2020, no one wants to be in the hospital if they don't have to be, of course. And so I think the more the market moves towards that, the more opportunity there is for us to really shift at least this part of a person's hospital experience into the home. So I think, those two things are just kind of a given. But then on top of that, I think there is a lot of opportunity on the home care side. This is a wearable tech product, and with any wearable, of course, there's a lot of opportunity. And so that's also part of our big vision. Once we get into hospitals and we bring this product into the home and we start getting some, lots of revenue, and we're doing really well as a company, I think there's a lot of opportunity there for, what can we get from the inside of this model, or what can we give to people that are at home, parents at home with their smartphone. So I think, the first step, of course, making Snuglet a standard of care, but then after that, I think that the world is our oyster, and there's lots of exciting things coming up for therapy in the next few years.
Wonderful. I love that, actually. And in the same way that Martha Stewart was all about homeschool cooking, healthy and delicious and nice, and just like your mom or your dad used to make at home, that you're going to be all about taking the type of care that used to be given in hospitals but is much better placed at home, and bringing innovations into making that happen, starting with one baby at a time. Yes. Share, please, your email address so everybody has that. And
yes, my email is Alexa, so Alexa.Jones, Jones, at TheraBMedical.com. And I know that's a long email, so I'm sure that you guys will be putting it in the caption.
Yeah, and also you
for
can
the
put
podcast.
It, and you can also put it to me. So, and TheraB is THERA and then B.com. But you can also write to Brian at expertdojo.com. Alexa, congrats on everything you've built. We're delighted to be investors in your company. Let's keep going and build this really phenomenal company.
Yeah, absolutely. It's great to get in the LA community, of course, with our hospital partner, and now you as investors. So we're excited to make it happen.
Awesome. And that's a wrap.